And we are back. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Channel 135 podcast. This is the show we talk about our favorite things in life, movies, TV series, and pop culture. I'm Cams, and I'm here with the Usos. We've got from our rugby union podcast, the Counter Rock. We've got Stacy. What's up, Uso?
What's up, boys? Thanks for having me on again. I've been following the pod intently. You guys doing a good job, so glad to be on.
Glad to have you on, bro. And we've got also from our NRL podcast, the 135 Footy Show. We've got Bobby. What's up, my man?
What's up, brothers? Good to be on for this final review of this Chief of War TV series. Aloha to all our Hawaiian fans out there. It's been great learning about Hawaiian history, so let's get it on.
Yep, let's get it on. Man, this is our last episode review of this TV series in particular, but man, it's been a journey, boys. It's been good to chop it up with you guys for 9 episodes, 9 straight weeks. So real happy for that. But yeah, man. I think we'll just get into it. Eh? So you can find the Channel 135 on all our socials. We're on the WesWes Movies and TV YouTube channel. Like and subscribe to that. The Channel 135 is part of the WesWes Network. So check out the website www.weswesnet.com. There you can find all links to our podcasts, our sports podcast, and our other movie podcast, the Late Returns Film Review. And you can find the WesWes Network on socials as well, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. So we are here to talk about the finale of Chief of War, episode 9, that dropped on Friday. Like I said, man, it's been a good series, man, to follow along. But yeah, we're gonna go straight into it because it's the finale and we've got a lot to talk about. So we won't go ahead until we do a spoiler alert. So if you haven't watched the episode yet, episode 9, I suggest you stop this podcast right now, go watch it, and come back and listen to us. We're about to break it down. Channel 135 recap.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
So, episode 9, The Black Desert, directed by Jason Momoa, written by Thomas Asabet and Jason Momoa. Keoa demands loyalty to one of the district chiefs on the volcano, making the chief take out his teeth as an offering. Meanwhile, Kamehameha formally appoints Kaiana as the chief of war and gives Kahumanu a seat at the council. Kaiana assures Tony he has a home in Hawaii forever, while Namake confesses having slept with Kupoi during Kaiana's absence. Feeling ashamed, Kaiana forgives him. On Oahu, Prince Kupole, who was stabbed previously by his father, is still alive but weak. His father comforts him. The next day, the armies of both Keoa and Kamehameha gather on a volcanic plain, with the volcano looming, setting a dramatic environment for battle. Both Opunui and Kaiana hype it up by trash-talking each other during the standoff. During the battle, Heke takes revenge on Opunui, who previously assaulted her. She kills him violently using poison. Kupoi is struck by a spear during the melee. As the battle intensifies, the volcano erupts. The grounds opens underneath Keoa's forces as they plummet into the lava. Keoa stands on a ridge during the eruption. Kaiana climbs up to confront him. Just as Kaiana is about to pull the trigger of his gun, the ground explodes with steam and lava, killing Keoa. With Keoa gone, the battlefield shifts. Kamehameha's forces are victorious. There is an emotional moment between Kaiana and Kahumanu. She tends to him as they embrace, but stop before a kiss. Back on Oahu, Kaikili remains a major threat. After learning of Keoa's defeat and that Kaiana lives, he vows war. And that was your Channel 135 episode recap. Alright, boys, start with you, Stace. How'd you like this episode?
Yeah, I thought it was a good episode. I enjoyed this episode a lot. And I felt it really brings together everything Chief of War has been building towards. So throughout the season, Chief of War has always sort of wrestled with the collision of upholding traditional values versus embracing change, of personal ambition against sort of the collective destiny. And I thought it was well done that the way that Keoa and Kamehameha embodied those different values. We see those themes explode on the battlefield in their finale. So Kamehameha's vision of unity meets Kiowa's defiance. We even see the land itself shaking, sort of lava, ash, and fire, symbolizing the cost of that division. So what stood out for me is, we don't just get the epic battle, but we see a culmination of choices that the characters have made throughout the season. So you think about Kaiana. At the start, he wanted this peaceful life and was avoiding conflict at the start of the season. Now he fully embraces his role as chief of war. We see Ka'umanu, who was struggling to understand her place and how she fits in early on. She's now asserting herself as a voice of the council. And we just see the presence of some of the foreign weapons as well, which a lot of the leaders weren't fully ready to embrace. And now they embrace it, and that shifts the balance of power once again. So we're they were just a crucial part of the victory once they accepted them. So it's also sort of serves as a reminder that Hawaii's future is being reshaped by some external forces as much as it is by those internal rivalries. So just for me, I watched this episode and the show in general through, Samoan eyes, I guess. And it's hard not to draw parallels with our own culture. And also think about how much of our rich traditions and ways we lost after colonization and European influence. So in that respect, I thought Kiowa's downfall was a bit tragic, because to me, he was a real representation of holding on to those traditional ways of doing things. But it also felt like it was inevitable. His pride, his unwillingness to compromise sort of hastened his own destruction. So it was a fitting finale, but even that victory for Kamehameha isn't the final uniting of Hawaii. Kahikili's still out there, and that keeps the circle of conflict alive. And in that way, the finale captures the essence of the series. We start the show with the prophecy. A king will rise and unite the islands, but that path to unification is marked by sacrifices, fragile alliances, and the question of whether peace can ever truly last. So it was a great end to an epic season, and there's still enough meat on the bones there to have a solid follow-up season 2 if they do renew. So I enjoyed the episode.
Yeah, man, I enjoyed it too. Just listening to your point, Stace and Cam, you bringing it up. I love how this show as a whole has been unapologetically Hawaiian. The language has been in your face, the culture's been in your face. Different things like the sled racing, how they used to hunt sharks, and all of that sort of stuff that you might not have even been aware of before. Now you are watching Chief of War and having watched this whole series so far. And that's been the coolest thing, I think, about Chief of War, is that, I went in knowing a little bit. I knew that Kamehameha was the king of Hawaii, and that's probably about it. And so watching this episode, knowing that Kamehameha is the king, I kind of had that feeling when I was watching Phantom Menace, Star Wars. You get that ending where Qui-Gon dies, and then it's like Darth Maul versus Obi-Wan, and you're like, well, this guy makes it to Star Wars A New Hope, so how is the bad guy gonna die? And so for me, it was like, it didn't matter how badass they built up Gewa, I kind of knew this guy had his comeuppance coming somehow, and you kind of was just waiting on to see how it would all unfold. And I really liked that. The thing that I enjoyed most about this episode was just the spectacle, like the colors. Like this episode was so colorful, orange, deep hues of orange and yellow and red, and like they really made that lava look like it was its character on its own. And in the end, like when you saw all of Kiwa's troops just get swallowed up by the lava, that was very Lord of the Rings like. At the end, Return of the King, you got all these orcs running at flipping, what's his name, Aragorn and his troops, and then you think, man, they're outnumbered, and then the ground opens up and swallows that whole orc army. So, similar to this, I really enjoyed how they built Cliff Curtis right up. He was the equal of Kamehameha, and after you saw him kill Nahi, man, he was probably more than Kamehameha, because we haven't really seen Kamehameha do anything apart from, short of battle. You've seen him show his endurance, his strength, and that sort of thing. His whole legend, we talked about it. the prophecy of him being born under Halley's Comet, him flipping the stone, all of that sort of stuff. But Keua, man, when he killed Nahi in the previous episode, and I was like, this guy, his status as a warrior, and then it gets built up even more when the other chief comes over and says, hey, I commit my soldiers to you. Oh, yeah? And what else? Oh, here's my family's weapon. Oh, yeah? What else? your teeth. Oh, just one of your teeth. Built up that whole, damn, he was real badass villain type character, right? And then the way that he just got dismantled by Kaiana at the end, so that was cool how they started that battle. I really enjoyed that whole let the spiritual battle begin. I was like, hey, is this another one of those? Oh, here he comes, Prince Kupule. But it was cool to see that whole culmination of this whole series end in that really amazing battle. So yeah, the spectacle I thought was something that I really enjoyed and that I took away from that. And man, it's encouraging. There's going to be a season 2. I hope it did well enough, commercially, so that they're able to fund a second season for it, because I think the story of Kahekili and Kaiana Kamehameha all sort of coming together, and that needs to be told and finished off so that we can see, that the Chief of War is going to evolve into a story about how Kamehameha becomes the king of Hawaii. So yeah, I thought it was all good, bro. I really enjoyed that episode.
I think it really was a good ending to the episode, because we spoke, well, when I jumped on a couple of episodes ago, how there was a build-up. It was building up to, because the last battle, the only battle that we sort of saw was really the Bay of Spilled Brains. And now, as we were leading into what we knew was going to be a massive battle at the end, because, you had all this division between the different islands. You had a couple of allies join forces, Keua and some other islands jump in with their force. But then you see how, I guess, just the way that it all ended in Kamehameha's sort of leadership. There was a shift in his leadership, which was good, because how he was all about diplomacy and peace. But now that's no longer part of the dialogue. He's decided to heed the plea of Kaiana, and he made a decision to take up arms as well, to agree with his people taking up arms and going and taking and trying to claim, before they lose anything any more people, any more deaths on their island, to try and take force. So this was the only option now to and that was the shift in his leadership to accept that. And there was also some of the female characters and how they came into making that decision for Kamehameha as well. Their council, both for Kaiana and Kamehameha, their respective wives, had an integral role in the shift in their mindsets and how they were going to be unified as opposed to divided in a lot of ways. So there was a coming together, a unification for their side, as well as the other layers of Kaiana's own family being more unified. How his brother sort of disclosed to Kaiana that things had changed since he had gone. He had sought comfort in his wife as well as her in him. And so all of these things and the way that was all about reconciliation as well from Kaiana's point of view, because he was not to know that, he was still alive on the other side of the globe. And so he had done no harm in that regard. And so he was at peace with accepting that. And so it was good to see the family, especially after their other brother passed away or was murdered, that they could be unified with Heke as well as, going into battle. And it was a much needed togetherness that was required in order for them to be able to arrive at this battle scene.
So it was a good episode, or
In a way, I think it was a bit the way that it finished. Obviously, they were both exposed to the volcanic eruption at the end there, and obviously we learned that the way that you see Keua lying there, has he survived that? Well, Kaiana obviously survived, but Keua seemed like he was burnt, but it wasn't moving. So, but interesting to see how the reaction of what's Kamehameha's wife's name again? Kahamanu, yeah. Her reaction to whether Kaiana was dead or not, and running over, and then Moku standing there like looking, he's like, oh my gosh, this lady. It's just, yeah. But nah, it was good because obviously it leads to the fact that there's a bit of a cliffhanger because we know now what's to come, because, Tim Widder's character towards the end there, sort of, he's now learnt the news that Keua is no longer and he has lost the battle, and Kaiana is obviously going to be coming for him, and vice versa. So I guess it leads into us whether there is an episode season 2. It seems like that's the way it's sort of leaning towards.
Yeah, I think for every finale and any season, there has to be a build up to it, whether it be a big battle or a big confrontation between the villain and the hero, or whatever it is. The resolution of the story. For Chief of War, for me, like, I remember like the last maybe 4 or 5 episodes being a real slow burn, and I remember thinking, man, I just want to skip to the last episode because I want to see this big war, man. Like that was the feeling, right? So, and I gotta say, man, I was kind of disappointed with how they filmed it, the last battle, because, man, what I expected, because of the fact that a lot of money is being poured into this TV series, I was expecting something like Game of Thrones, like type battle, like big wide shots showing the whole field of battle. You didn't really get that, and you probably speak to this, Raj, with your like film school stuff. But the shots were up close. There was no big wide shots seeing the whole battle. It's sort of like Hollywood camera tricks, eh? The closeness of the camera work, just to hide the background and stuff.
Yeah, I've never seen Game of Thrones. All I've got to compare it to is, war sort of movies such as Troy and Braveheart. What else? What is the other one? Patriot. So, when there are those expensive shots of on the field, you can see how massive these scenes are and the numbers of actors that have made. But obviously with CGI is what they've sort of tried to portray the expense of the vastness of, this battle on lava, on hardened lava rock. And it's a very interesting battlefield because we've never seen anything like it in terms of, other historical time period sort of films and series. So, yeah, it's always going to be difficult showing the numbers game, but obviously the way that they try to convey Keua's army, that they were advantageous with the numbers. They had more numbers, but then it was balanced out for what Kaiana and Kamehameha had up their sleeve was having the muskets, the guns, and that's where they were able to get a stronghold on the battle. And much to Keua's dismay, he was just taken aback, and he just slowly, you could see by the expressions of his face that he was losing this battle. And and I guess, yeah, it's a really hard one to portray how much of a budget they would get. They probably did get, it's a Hollywood film, Hollywood series, but it's always going to be hard to portray depending on, the numbers of actors and extras that they have for such scenes, eh? But I see what you mean, because I've had to come in tight. To get, one-on-one battles battles between certain characters, or the Kayanas just barging through numerous would be attackers. So, Stace, sorry, chime in.
So yeah, I just wanted to say I actually quite enjoyed it. I thought it was actually really well done, for a bit of a different take. So obviously, I just said in my opening that I really felt for Keoa. So to me, that was sort of a haunting sequence of events for him. But if you sort of think about it differently, maybe thinking about it thematically, the eruption in the background almost represents Keoa's own collapse. So his pride, his refusal to compromise, his rejection of peace, that all comes crashing down in that scene where the land itself almost seems to reject him. And just thinking about the storytelling of the whole show, right? It's tied the fate of the chiefs to the will of the gods. And the volcano becomes sort of like a living embodiment of that judgment. So it isn't just an accident of nature. It's almost like Keoa's own god has said, nah, you ain't winning also. And it's sort of another reminder that the story of Hawaii is not just this political stuff, not just the brutality of the battles, but there's that profoundly sacred element of it, that spiritual element. And the will of the gods is at play here. So I thought that was Keoa's god saying, you're going to lose, which is why I liked how they did it and how they represented it the way it was done. Sort of my 5 cents worth.
Yeah, because before the actual physical battle, there was that battle of, they had those two characters on either side calling this the spiritual battle, or for covering, or calling their gods to give them the strength to be able to defeat the opposition. And it was almost symbolic when Kayana just was able to silence that guy that was making the calls for Keoa's army. So to say that, our God is going to be protecting us more so than yours.
Yeah, that was just sort of my nitpick of the technical aspects of filming that battle scene.
Right.
But man, the thing that still stands out for me in that battle scene is the brutality of the fighting and all that. Like, it reminded me of 300. How
that's another one too.
The slow motion and that's a close up camera shot as well. So it reminded me of that too. But brutality of it looked real. The stunts, it was a good episode to wrap up the story. I was just thinking, man, I don't know, maybe pump another $100,000 in the
I know what you mean, though,
like
because I think for what they couldn't portray, in terms of the size of the battle, they had to come in closer and be more intimate, especially with those one-on-one battles when Heke gets her revenge for the murder of Naki, and even so close that they close in on her, putting that through their guy's eye, and that's how close they were trying to portray how this battle scene and all of the different underlining narratives that were going throughout Kayana targeting Keoa. And obviously we knew that there was going to be a point in the battle where they were going to end up being the ones fighting. But I guess, it's how much can you, but I enjoyed the way that they were using those weapons, the Hawaiian weapons that we never really seen before. And even starting from the procession where the regalia and their costumes, and the colourfulness of it. It reminds me of, because we're familiar with what Roman battles through Gladiator, what their attire is when they take the battle. We'll see numerous, but we were soldiers. We know what the U.S. Army is all about and what a German soldier looked like in World War One. But to see what the Hawaiian warriors wore, and you trust that the filmmakers are trying to do it justice and try and be as authentic as possible to portray their warriors and their regalia as best as they can too. So there's a lot of the unseen that things that we've never seen before, and I think that was the beauty of what was being portrayed, regardless of whether there could, what you were suggesting there, Cam, a bit more of a budget, maybe it would have portrayed a bit more of army. But I guess a lot of filmmakers can rely on CGI to try and create the wider scenes.
Let's dive into that battle scene. I'll come to you, Bob. Like, what was your impressions of that? Like, for me, what stood out was that first ever, the first time these two armies show up and they have that sort of standoff. Like, you had Hopunui, and he's a good actor, eh? That guy, he's menacing, eh? The way he delivers his lines, man, you don't want to go up against that guy, eh?
That
But-
whole intro scene to the battle was cool, man. And you're right, like guys like Upanui, they all of the sort of main baddies got their turn to sort of speak. Upanui, Gewa, and then you had Gaiana on Kamehameha's side get the nod of approval to start the rebuttal back, and it was kind of like this battle of words and speeches to see you could get an upper hand before you actually sort of start to fight. So you had that spiritual battle set up. Those guys started praying. That was the beginning. And then you had these guys come and just start throwing insults at each other to see which insults would stick. And then I thought, because the guy who played Opanui he's probably more of a, is that guy Hawaiian? He seemed more fluent in Hawaii. So I enjoyed the fact that Jason Momoa in his comeback, he had like that whole Hawaiian scene, and then he knows Kewa doesn't understand English, and then to sort of send it home a bit more, is like he had that whole sort of English monologue where this is where your history's going to end, or whatever it is, your lineage is going to die here today, and Kewa's sort of staring at him, doesn't know what he's talking about, but you can see how angry Jason Momoa is, and that whole exchange I thought it really built up the battle. And my opinion about the battle is I thought it was cool, man. Like the wide shot where you could see, like Roger's talking about, how massive Kewa's troops were with the addition of Kahekili's, troops that Opanui brought over. And then you saw Kamehameha, he's only got his district. And then, Kewa's got that other guy's district that joined. And so they were a massive force. And that was probably the only thing you needed to see at the beginning of the battle, was so that you knew that these guys are outnumbered. So, again, I put back to that whole Phantom Menace scene. I was like, man, these guys are outnumbered. But I know that Kamehameha is the king, so how are they going to get through this? And the whole battle is about all those intimate fighting scenes that are one-on-one. You see the brothers who are sort of teamed up, all of that build-up leading to it. They've sort of forgiven their indiscretions between Namake and Kupohi, and he goes, you didn't offend a dead brother, or whatever Kaiana's line was to him. And so they've kind of, they've made up, and now for nahi. And I was like, oh no, these guys are going, man, you saw them tag teaming, like, so like, bang, here, have the spear, yeah, here's the other gun, whanga. And I was like, so those guys in tandem worked really well together, and I enjoyed that. And even the ladies got their scene where they sort of split up, and you'd see them practicing with those flipping David and Goliath slings with the rocks. Like throughout the series, they've been throwing rocks at trees, and now you get them to see them in action in the actual battle. And so those ladies are lethal. And they all got their moments to shine. You saw Kahumanu, she was like shooting people. She's really good with the rifle. And then you saw Kupohi, you saw Heke fighting, and then you got her big revenge scene. So all of those intimate battles that made up what was happening in the big overall scene, I still thought it was cool. I like that scene with the camera sort of panning backwards, and then you get all the different people coming together, and it sort of just kept panning backwards, and then bang, clash. I was like, so that was a cool scene, and I enjoyed that. And again, the whole, man, how are they gonna overcome the numbers? And then sure enough, oh, the gods have forsaken you, Gewa. I'm gonna open up the lava and swallow all of your troops. And so then that whole prophetic thing, that prophecy thing around Kamehameha, you get even more sort of mana to that whole thing, right? Because it's like, shit, man, he's already got this prophecy stuff that surrounds him, and now it's like, man, he went into battle with 10 against 1, 10-1 odds, and he overcame them. The lava gods opened up, swallowed up all of Keoa's, troops, and Ku. They call him Ku. That's the god of war, which is similar to most of the Pacific Island, to Matawinga, or in Maori. Man, that battle scene was epic, bro. And like Rod was saying, with the weapons, our Hawaiian brothers and sisters that comment about these weapons and say, I've got one with the shark teeth, but they break all the time. It was cool to see how Jason Momoa and all of them in that battle scene, they don't use them as clubs. They're just like they punch and then rip, or straight to your throat and rip. That way the shark teeth don't break on like hard skulls or bones or anything. They're going to like soft tissue and then just tearing right up the middle of your guts or along your back, or like that was pretty lethal. And thanks to all the Hawaiian fams that pointed out that lua, that martial arts, Hawaiian martial arts, you saw that in full effect, man. Jason Momoa, obviously son of a chief and a li'i that knew that style. And this is where I thought Kehiwa, as well as Kamehameha, I suppose it supported that comment that Roger made a couple of episodes ago, where he's like, nah, Jason Momoa's going to be the man. And he sure was, because Kehiwa only got like a few sort of scenes and didn't really do much during the battle, right? He's just standing there looking at his priests get killed, looking at his troops get killed. Even Kamehameha, he's like taking off his robe, and I was like, yeah, now he's going to join the fight. So like, he doesn't really do much either. You see him like kill maybe one guy, but it's like real meh. Like the main battle scenes are all about all of the supporting cast, and Keoa and Kamehameha, who are meant to be the cousins that this whole battle is about, are real bystanders, really. And all of the soldiers are doing all of the fighting. Chief of War, he's given to Jason Momoa to lead his army. Sure enough, but that scene where I thought when he took off his thing and then, take off my hat, I'm going to join the melee, and then it didn't really sort of eventuate. He didn't get any really cool scenes where to sort of demonstrate his prowess in battle, and so I thought that was kind of meh. But the ending with the whole, Kaiana is like, no, not me. Kamehameha, praise Kamehameha. I was like, I love this guy. Praise Kamehameha, because I nearly kissed his wife. And there's a whole lot that's looking to derail in season 2, that whole kahumanu and Kaiana sort of relationship. Namake is cradling an injured Kupohi, and it's like, hey man, she's still my wife. I'm back now. I said sorry. I forgive you, but Sally, why are you hugging her like that? So all those love triangles are still there to sort of derail the good guys in this cool result that they've got now. But now they've got to take on Kahikilian. So yeah, man, I really enjoyed that battle scene. It seemed authentic with the spirit battle first, then the taunts, and then getting into it and how they were fighting. It seemed real. It wasn't just a scrappy mess of clubbing and stabbing. It looked very orchestrated. It looked very, techniques. If you were just a lowly foot soldier, you were just cannon fodder, right? You were just running in just to get your throat slit by Jason Momoa and his brothers. So yeah, no, I enjoyed that, bro. That battle scene was pretty epic for me.
Just one thing from me in relation to how Heke gets revenge on Opanui. It seemed that was the only bit that seemed disjointed to me in how she became isolated from the rest of the battle. And then she's already surrounded by Opanui and some of his foot soldiers. But then even more so, the disjointment was when, I keep forgetting her name, and how Kahumanu was able to just turn around to the right or to the left and, there's Heke, she's in trouble, and shoot Opanui. She's the one that observed that Opanui is, circling around and gonna be able to kill Heke, but she somehow is able to shoot, and maybe she's just a great markswoman from the vantage point that she was at. But that was the only part in the battle that I felt seemed a little distorted. But got the result that we sort of desired in the end.
Yeah, she shot him in the leg,
Mm.
and that was enough for Heke to take advantage.
Yeah.
A couple of cool things I saw in the battle was when Kayana dips that dude's head in the lava, burns up his face. That was one. And when he, like you guys were saying, like when he killed the guy with the holding a flag or whatever it was, and he rips out his tongue and looks at Kiowa, eats his tongue, and he spits it out. That got Kiowa mad. He was like,
Yeah.
"Damn you, damn you!"
That was quick.
So there was a few good scenes. The other cool one was when at the beginning when they're Kayana and Opanui were having their standoff, and Kayana he mocks the warriors to throw their spears, and we've seen Kayana dodge spears in episode 1.
Yes,
we've seen him do that before, so he was doing it again on the. He was just showing off, man. But he was the man, because he knew how to combat those spears and just hyped it up some more, eh? So,
but not even hyped it up even more, but showed that the spears wasn't going to make a difference. But then what you were talking about, Bob, and how he knew that they had the advantage, and there was the big revelation. It's almost where the traditional style of warfare was going to be met with the muskets unknowingly to Keua. Keua wasn't aware that these guys were coming with their guns. And then I guess that's where the big revelation was when Jason Momoa was standing there with his cape, his wingspan is widespread. It's almost like the drop of the curtain or drop of the veil that revealed the guns, and that was just an awesome beginning of the physical battle. And then that's when they realized, and from then on, it was going to be hard. It's going to be hard to combat because they were sending wave after wave, and just being slaughtered by the guns.
You know what that reminded me of? That bit there, like, so if you've been to like funerals and things, and you see my guys stand up, and they do what's called in Samoan a whakau. So the chiefs get up and they battle with each other to see who's going to be selected as the main orator to give a speech. And that scene with Kaiana and Opanui was like a whakau, right? So they're battling at each other with words to see whose taunts and whose put downs are gonna amp their army up more. And Kaiana's like just slaughtered him when he called him like spear polishers, and all of you guys over there that are polishing spears, you're just here because you're Guy Gillies spear polisher.
That got him angry.
You can see Opanui's eyes just turn into rage, and I was thinking suddenly, and that part there, I likened it to how Makais get up and do that sort of whakau, that speech battle before one of them ultimately backs down and then lets the one who's more eloquent in his speech, or who says more things that people are agreeing with, and it's like, oh yes, I agree, okay, I'll back down, and you go, bro, you be the main orator for today's event or whatever it is. And that's what that scene sort of reminded me of, and I just wanted to make that point.
No, that's a good point. How about you, Stace? What was your favorite parts of that battle?
Yeah, I thought it was all good. I think you guys touched on it, the brutality of the whole thing. So, they haven't tried to romanticize war at all throughout the show, and I really respect that. So we've seen the full brutality just in this scene, but throughout all of the battle scenes. And if you think right back to the start of the show, Kaiana and his family were they were desperate for a life of peace. They were almost traumatized by the atrocities that they did as warriors, and you can see why, man. That's, if you get up close and personal and you're ripping people's guts out like that, that's just the brutality of it has got to take a toll. So I think that was the main thing I took out of it, just with those weapons which you mentioned, Rog. Man, it's pretty brutal stuff, that hand-to-hand combat, that close quarters stuff. So I like how they brought that into the battle. I thought that was quite well shot. And what I mentioned before, just the symbolism of the volcanic eruption. The people, the masses, like Bob, you said, they'll say, oh yeah, even Kioa's own god turned him down, and that legitimizes Kamehameha. There's that spiritual element as well, which I thought was incorporated well into the battle.
I got to give it up to when we were talking about how they were training with the muskets, and I bagged them thinking, "Sale man, this battle with Kiwa, these guys haven't got enough time to get ready." So the first use of those muskets, and then it was like this structured, organized line where forward, back, and then the next guys came up. And I was like, "Oh, sorry, dude. I take it back. You guys were very prepared. You looked like just like those
Tony
War
did
of
his job, man.
Independence
Tony did his job.
soldiers."
Yeah.
So
But then
you
it's got
did-
it's from the English sort of how English or British soldiers, that's how they do it, eh? They fire, then the next line comes, fire, or
Yeah, I
or
didn't
they
think
get
the
taken down.
Hawaiians would be disciplined enough to learn how to do it that way. But man, they showed me
Time-
wrong, because like
time
Kamehameha would be
passed.
like, bang, just pass the gun back to like a lady, and then the lady passes another loaded one, and I was like, man, they didn't waste time showing scenes of them doing the whole,
Mm.
Yeah,
like you
it was
always
like,
see in
one
those
shot, and
movies,
then,
like the
he's
Patriot.
reloading.
Man.
He's reloading.
It was like it was already loaded, and I was like, man, I
It
appreciated
just seemed
it.
like
They
they had
didn't
guns
waste
that were
time
always loaded.
on musket metrics
Yeah, yeah,
and on
yeah.
all of that sort
Um,
of crap. That was cool.
Yeah, so did you know what? I felt robbed there at the end there. I really wanted a hand-to-hand combat battle between Guyana and Kiwa. You know, I thought I got robbed from that, man. Like the way Kiwa got killed, like just like that. Like, man, because we saw him have that hand-to-hand combat, and he killed
With Nucky.
he killed his brother.
Nucky, yeah.
Yeah, and then no, man, we had to see a hand-to-hand combat fight between Guyana and Kiwa. So I thought, man, got robbed of that. But I don't know. How'd you guys like that indie?
Because I wonder what that
Did you guys want to
signifies.
see a hand fight?
I didn't, because I want to come. We're talking about Bobby brought it up, how we know that Kamehameha is going to be the king, so you have to build up his mana. And by saying that, he basically won that war through spiritual forces and his own gods and stuff. That legitimizes his overall claim, and I think that was more important, the longer game, as opposed to building up Katiana and his superior war skills and all the rest of it. So that's where I think they went that. I'm just speculating here. That's why I think they went that angle. It was the gods speaking for Kamehameha to be victorious, and his own, Keo's own gods leading to his demise. So I thought that was more important than the overall, than say getting that battle between those two. That's just my 5 cents opinion.
I did a little. I'll go.
No, I was just wondering. I wonder what the significance of volcanoes are in Hawaii, because it kept on cutting back to the volcano erupting in the background, or about to erupt in the background. Then you also had the lava flow also sort of encroaching into where the battle scene was. So I think it had to have a massive sort of part in the battle, and we sure saw that when a lot of the lava rock sort of collapsed underneath because of the molten lava that was coming through. So, and that took a vast amount of Kiwa's sort of army out of play. And so I wonder what the significance is, because instead of that hand-to-hand battle between Kiwa and Guyana, it was, in the end, it was the volcano that took Kiwa's life. So, and they place so much importance in it being like a god or a sign from the gods, and how it plays into, and now and I wonder, the ones that did survive from Kiwa's army, how do they then feel? And towards that, the volcano has inevitably taken away their leader. And I wonder how that makes them, what does that symbolize for them as a culture in that time, and how symbolic it is now.
All through the series, watching the series, we all sort of had the same thinking. We didn't want to get into the research behind these real life characters and go ahead of ourselves. But with me, since Kiwa, he died, I went into his history. When I went into the internet and read about him. So, man, they actually changed a few things, man. So, what I read was apparently he had a twin, and his twin was the king, right? And because they had that last battle in this episode 9, there were actually a few. There were a few battles, right? And when his twin brother died from, it doesn't say how he died. He dies, and then Keua takes over, and he sort of gets tricked into having a meeting with Kamehameha, and he gets killed there at the meeting. They sort of amalgamated two characters into one for the series. Is Bob still there? Is he frozen?
Yeah, just
I think he's still reloading his musket.
We spoke about Kamehameha, like how he was like for like 4 episodes straight. He was sort of frustrating because he wasn't, and you pointed that out. Hey, Rog, how we saw that he's been a guy that's been wanting peace, not doing anything. There was a scene where he got their village destroyed from those Balangis in the sort of sea, and we wanted to know if this last episode will be the episode where he comes out of his shell. Did that do that for you?
Yep, and I think we saw it right up until the Bay of Spilled Brains, was that we could see that his evolution from being reluctant to even take up the leadership role, and then his transition into becoming a leader, and and he was just trying to find his place. And I think we see that in a number of the episodes leading up to this point. And then you have almost a unification between him and Kayana, because he's now agreeing to what Kayana's been going on about this whole time through that procession and the ceremony at the beginning. And then there was a symbolic moment between where he's now he's got the revelation that Kayana is the one to lead them into this battle, when the feather comes off one of the tiki or the statues, and it falls on Kayana. So that's symbolic in itself that he's at peace now to accept the fact that Kayana's to lead him. But this is all part of his, not only his leadership, but his coming to be and accepting his role as their leader. And I think that was a moving little bit there. But the evolution of his character, and then him taking off his cape to prepare for arms and take up weapons, it was awesome. And then you could see that because we knew that he was skilled right from the beginning in this playful manner, but he wasn't, didn't take it serious enough to, why do I have to be the leader? But he's thrust into that leadership role, and now we see him. But then there's that poignant moment at the end where everyone's cheering, and you see the soldiers, the army is facing towards Kayana, and yet Kamehameha is standing at the back looking at this and goes, but I'm the king. What? And then, and that's a good show of modesty and humility from Kayana. If this is to progress, and this is how integral Kayana is to Kamehameha's reign as well. He motions towards the crowd and say, "Hey, he's to have the Braveheart moment, not me." So, and then that forces Kamehameha to get the chant and the accolades. So it's I'm not sure how that point, how that moment happens because what's to come with Kamehameha, because we know there's an underlining set of emotions between Kamehameha's wife and Kayana, and yet she makes her way back after going to his aid to make sure he's not dead, and then comes back, and she's holding the hand of Kamehameha as everyone's chanting Kamehameha's name. But the uncle knows suddenly these two are up to no good.
Yeah. There's a couple of characters that come full circle now. Kaimanu is one of them. She's sort of in and out of the council now. She's back in the council. She's by Kamehameha's side, apparently. So she's back in those circles, and Kayana, with Namake just admitting to him that he was fooling around with his wife while he was gone. They had like a little moment there, and they were forgiven. So their family's back. So back in Oahu, we find out that Kupoli's still alive, and Kai Hekili's there is this a change with him? Do you think he's changed because he almost killed his son, or do you think he's still the crazy guy that we've seen all series? Any thoughts on that, Stace?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's a tough one, eh? I mean, he's gone a bit off the rails, and he believes in his own heart that he's the one to fulfill the prophecy. So that's where I think it gets interesting. So, just for myself, I've got a very limited understanding of Hawaiian history, other than what I picked up through the show. But we see what happened with Kamehameha. He's really stepping up, and he's doing his bit to fulfill the prophecy. So that can be quite dangerous from Kaikili's perspective, because you think about what we see as legitimacy. It's not just about winning those battles; it's about the mana, which we talked about before, and that divine authority to rule. So Kamehameha's triumph, framed by that volcanic eruption and all the rest of it, and the fury of that looks and feels like an endorsement, I guess, from the gods. So, like, the gods have spoken for Kamehameha. And if you unpack that from Kahekili's perspective, that's quite dangerous, because if the gods and the land seem to be backing Kamehameha, then that means Kahekili's claim that he's the prophesied one loses its luster a little bit. So, I think that at the end there, that declaration of war, I think he's really going to come for it, because he needs to stage a war with Kamehameha, and to win it, to fulfill his version of the prophecy. So I liked how they put that in at the end. I think, hopefully, you think if you stab your son, that might straighten you out a little bit. So maybe he's going to be on the right path a bit more. But I think if they get renewed that season 2, that's where it's going to get interesting, because there's this larger clash at play now for that legitimacy, the power and the destiny to be the one who fulfills that prophecy and unifies all of Hawaii. So I think, season 2 is going to get interesting, just how that all unfolds, for sure.
We're close to ending off, so but before we get into who won the episode, just sort of some last words and how you thought about the whole series as a whole.
Kaiana, in terms of the way that his character's evolved, as well as Kamehameha's evolved, it's almost like we see the evolution of both those characters and the way forward from here, and where traditional warfare was met with the nuances of the muskets that was, brought through with, the involvement of Tony, as well as Kaiana's adventures abroad. And so moving forward, it's, what else is going to be a bunch of surprises for Kahekili in the second season, because he's obviously heard the news now that Kamehameha has triumphed and Keua is no longer here. And so how does he... But he seems confident, because he's got, a fleet of warships ready to invade, coming from Maui to... Where are they? Oahu? And so
Yep.
I think... And that only... He's not... I don't think he knows how Kiwa's been defeated, unless that's been already been notified to him. But that's where, we could be met with different styles of battle. It could be more than just muskets here, because we also can't eliminate the fact that we're going to have more paleskin coming back, with Captain Murray. He might be venturing back, and so that involvement is another sort of layer that could play a part in how Kahekili battles against Kaiana and Kamehameha. But I guess, I don't know, do we then now look into a bit of history, how it evolves from this battle between Keua that's led to Keua's death and Kaiana? Or would you, Cam, still not read too much into the history and just let the series unfold and unravel?
Yeah, I'll generally let the series unfold and unravel as we go. But I think when a major character gets killed, that's sort of like the green light for me to look into that person's life, and see what really happened, or see what the history book says about that.
One character I did look into was Tony, and apparently it's based on it's based on an actual character that was a part of involved with Kayana, and someone that escaped America, I think, and made his way to England, and then was able to. That's how they come across. But there's a word in Hawaii that they use, and it's similar to whangaia or whangai. Sorry, when they whangai, and in Hawaii they call it hanai when they adopt someone. And Tony's that character, integral character from the outside, similar to John Young role as well, but hanai because Tony was a runaway slave, and yet he's found a place and a purpose alongside Kayana under Kamehameha's rule, an integral part in this battle that we've just seen. Because if it wasn't for Tony training as well as Kayana training a lot of the Hawaiians from their district, they probably wouldn't have been able to win based on the number game. So, and Tony's now, because he adds to the layers of how Kayana's evolved as well as a character, because after seeing the outside world beyond the shores of the island, he's also brought back Tony as someone that represents that didn't belong, but now has found a sense of belonging here amongst the islanders, and so that was an interesting word that they use as hanai, to adopt.
You there, Raj? Oh, yeah. We'll we'll come to you, Bob. Yeah, just talk about, like, we're just trying to end it off. So, your thoughts on the series as a whole, and then we'll get into the who won the episode.
Yeah, series as a whole, man, I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the fact that they've tried to bring all of this Hawaiian culture through this TV series. And I think that was one of Jason Momoa's objectives, right? Was to showcase Hawaiian culture, showcase the language, showcase all of these amazing things about the Hawaiian people, and talk a little bit about Hawaiian history from the perspective of Hawaiians. None of this whitewashed stuff, none of this perspective from, the Palangis that came to Hawaii and have probably told history of Hawaii from a really Eurocentric lens. And so I've enjoyed the fact that, yes, it might be embellished a bit, this whole story, but it remains authentically Hawaiian. And, you watch all of the interviews that they have with the creators of the show, Jason Momoa, Pasabet, and all the actors. And they've got some really cool podcasts out there that Hawaiians are on, and they bring on all the characters to sort of talk them through a lot of the stuff. And man, they really praise this whole series for being a vehicle for them to showcase Hawaiian culture, to put it out there into the world. And I think the series, as much as it's been about action and big, massive sort of blockbuster scenes, and you've got some really heavy Hollywood actors on it, the Jason Momoas of the world, Timur Morrison, Cliff Curtis, all of these guys that bring a real acting steel to the range of all of these people on it. And then you've got all of the New Zealand actors that we've seen on we're used to seeing heaps of these guys. Te Kohe Haka, you've seen them on numerous things, and even Lucianne Buchanan, you've seen her on TV, Night Agent, she's been on some stuff. It's been a really cool spectacle of a show. And it's, it might have gotten off to a bit of a rocky start with all of these people that sort of weighed in on the fact that they didn't have that many Hawaiians playing these historical Hawaiian characters. But I think Tim, Cliff Curtis, all of the non-Hawaiians that have played these characters, they've done a really good job. From my perspective, I think they've done a really good job. And the series as a whole, I think, it's been really good. Yes, there were parts of the series that were real slow burn, and you had to, but I think those were necessary. It was necessary for them to have Kayana go off and have this massive tangent in the Philippines and then come back, and for him to have that whole character arc of started off as knowing all of this like traditional stuff, and then he gets all of this extra sort of worldly knowledge that none of the other Hawaiians have, and that's that whole dynamic that him and Kamehameha has. That he's like, I've seen all of these things, you haven't seen any of them. Kamehameha is still wanting to be diplomatic and all of that stuff with Mali and that Captain Metcalf that comes in those later episodes. But I think the story as a whole has been really epic. Like Jason Momoa, you only know of him as an actor, but he's directed and he's produced and he's written some of the story, and these are credits that you didn't realize, and skills that you didn't realize that Jason Momoa had. But now he's sort of, man, he's come onto the world stage to show people that he's more than just an actor, that given the right sort of passion project that Chief of War is, man, he's displayed his skills as a cinematographer, as a storyteller, as all of these things, a filmmaker. And that's what I've really enjoyed about it. It's put a lot of Pacific people out there into the world now that have seen all of these Pacific actors, all these New Zealand actors. It's been a massive plus for me to see all of these Hawaiian, yes, but us as Samoans down here in New Zealand, it's a Pacific story, and we've all sort of touched on it before, Stace, Rog, even yourself, Cam, about how there's so many more stories out there in the Pacific. We've seen how Moana in the animated world kicks ass, and Moana 2 is like the highest grossing animated film in history now. It's taken over Frozen and that. And so I'm like, man, we've got so much culture in the Pacific and so many stories to tell that I feel Chief of War is probably just the tip of the iceberg for me. And I really hope it's the tip of the iceberg, because there are so many more Pacific stories that we could bring about in a way like Chief of War has for the Hawaiian history and the Hawaiian culture.
See, I agree. That's my main take out of this, that last point that you just talked about there, was because obviously the show's very good. You think about just the plot and everything. So the series, it's weaving these sort of personal dramas, the spiritual stakes, and the political ambitions and all the rest of it into this single compelling narrative. So, you watch Kamehameha struggle to unify Hawaii, and he's trying to balance that diplomacy with the warfare side of things, the traditional side of things with the innovation and all the rest of it. But, if you didn't know any better, you'd sort of credit the writers for their innovative thinking and developing the story. But this isn't just a fictional made-up show. It's based on historical events, and that's maintains its authenticity as well. So to me, that's the real genius of the show. So I've listened to all the podcast episodes you guys have done. You've drawn parallels with like the Gladiator, Enter the Dragon, Simon brought up, mob movies, and all these fictional stories that have been dramatized for Hollywood. But this is a true story, and it's historically pretty accurate. So just for myself as a Polynesian person, I'm ecstatic to see Pacific stories brought to life. And you're right, hopefully this is just a start, because if you're being honest, there's many more Hollywood-level stories in Pacific history that haven't really been told properly. So hopefully, like you mentioned, Bob, that's my main takeaway. Hopefully they can carry on and do some other stories.
I suppose, so who won the episode? I'll start with you, Rog.
I believe Kahamanu wins the episode for me, because she's got investments with Kaiana as well as with the king of Kamehameha. Moki's the only one that knows. Moku sees how she's run to his aid, and she was an integral part at the beginning before the battle scene, because she's been inducted into the council. She's been brought into the council as well. So I think, we'll see her influence. We see her influence in this last episode and the one before, as well as we're gonna see how the way forward with, does she venture on with Kamehameha, or is there gonna be an affair with Kaiana? Because it's all leading to that from previous episodes, and even and that pinpoint that she doesn't run to Kamehameha's aid, she runs to Kaiana's aid. So I think she's got a foot in both camps. She wins the episode for me.
Nice. You, Bob?
I think Kaiana's an obvious one, but for me, I really enjoyed Heke in this episode, and her whole revenge arc that she's able to get her revenge on Opunui and deal to him for what he did to her. And it was that was a really it's like you knew she wasn't physical enough to overpower him, but then getting that sort of lucky shot from Kahumanu to take out his legs, and then she was able to sort of bash him, and then I enjoyed that part. And then the way she got her revenge, and now you see why it was that she grabbed that poison from that fisherman and those plants, because man, stabbing him in the chest with that poison thing, I thought, oh man, yeah, cut, and I was like, man, that is lethal. But then the way that she stabbed that thing in his eye, I was like,
Right up close.
Only one other sort of movie I remember watching was that Brandon Routh Superman, where that scene where they've got that machine gun shooting at him, and you know that he's bulletproof everywhere.
yeah.
But
Bullet
then
in
that
his
guy
eye.
with the whanga goes like this, points at his eye, and the most vulnerable part of your body, and everyone sort of thinks, man, is he bulletproof in his eyeball? And then the bullet sort of crumples and then just hits the ground. This was sort of similar to that, but it shows how vulnerable the eyeball really is to not a Kryptonian. And then she stabbed his eye, and it just I was like, Sale. Heke for me, and just Maine Kirimaka, I've really enjoyed her acting, and she also acted with Jason Momoa in the other series that he starred in, C. That's another Apple TV series. And I enjoyed her acting then, and I really enjoyed her acting in this series. I like the fact that in this particular episode, she got more of a mana building sort of way to sort of end her character in the series, because she's been kind of like just been in the background the whole time. Her and Nahi gonna get together or not, and then they finally do, and then he dies, and then she gets a real light shone on her in that battle. And so for me, yes, Kayana was an obvious winner, but Heke for me was the winner, just in how she got her revenge on Opunui. So well done, Heke. Flowers to you.
Before I get to you, Stace, I just want to say my character who won the episode was obviously it's Kayana, but my close second has got to be Kayakeli's Warriors, man. Getting invited to the orgy at the end of the episode, like, man, that's my runner up. How about you, Stace?
Yeah, it's a tough one. A lot of people did good things and sort of close their character arc in a lot of ways. I didn't really have one really, but I'm gonna back you up, Rog. I thought Kahumanu was the winner for me. You know how that whole thing plays out in season 2 with the love triangle type thing, which you talked about earlier. We might get sort of like a betrayal or mistrust, paranoia type scenario, Shakespearean tragedy type storyline in season 2. But just for this one, I just try and think about who she was at the start of the season to where she got to in the end. So, she was introduced as sort of like a pawn in political maneuvering. She's just added in there to be part of this arranged marriage, one of Kamehameha's many wives. Her role defined more by that alliance and all the rest of it. So she represents like how a lot of those chiefly women were often used to consolidate power between these highborn people, I guess. So her when you think about how she reacted in that situation, she was quite watchful. She was quiet. She was just absorbing the shifting dynamics around her. And you think about where she's ended up. You think about that political arranged marriages. The best way to consolidate these alliances is through having an heir. But we know that she's infertile. So how does she add value to Kamehameha, and how does she prove herself to be worthy of those positions? And we've seen that she's quite politically astute. So she reads Kamehameha's ambition. She knows when to speak up, when to stay quiet. And like how they sort of, the show is subtly or indirectly tied her to the prophecy as well. Her counsel has become invaluable to Kamehameha. So starting the show as sort of a political pawn to finishing it as indispensable to Kamehameha's political ambitions. her sharpness is a good contrast with his warrior style of focus. He looks outwards towards conquest, and she steadies the vision sort of internally, just with her political nous. So she won it for me, I thought.
Nice.
And
Yeah, boys,
Bob,
that's
and Bob, if it wasn't for her, then Heki wouldn't have had her day in the sun.
That's right. That's right.
nice takes there, boys. Well, that's a wrap for Chief of War, season 1. Looks like. Hopefully, season 2 can come out next year. We'll probably have to look at the Hero Days if all those actors will come back and film in New Zealand if they're going to do that. We'll know if there's definitely a season 2, but we'll see. But yeah, thanks, boys, for jumping on. It's been a privilege having you guys on Chief of War. Hopefully, we'll do it again season 2. But tune in to channel 1 through 5. We're going to break down Alien Earth during the week and the Peacemaker. Yep, that's us. Thanks, boys. Have a good week. Bye.
Thank you.